Did you notice what happened in Blacksburg recently? It didn't take place specifically in Blacksburg per se, but Virginia Tech, after the spring transfer portal window and the dust kind of settled, had their win total tick up by a game. It's 8.5. 8.5. Miami's is 9.5. Clemson's is 9.5. Florida State's is 9.5. And there's Virginia Tech with a win total of 8.5. Same as NC State last time I checked, according to our friends at FanDuel. So, what do you expect to get from Virginia Tech? What should you expect? I think Virginia Tech is the difference between expectations and hopes. Can you expect to go over if you're Virginia Tech? It's year 3 for Brent Pry. Year 1, a rebuild. Last year, by all accounts, a successful season. And over the second half of the year, Virginia Tech was a very different football team. Really the second 2/3 of the season. Virginia Tech finished with a 7-6 record last year. They closed with a bowl game victory over a Tulane team that admittedly was undergoing a coaching change, but was still pretty darn good, had played in the American Conference Championship game, and Virginia Tech wins that to end the year 7-6. What do you think their record was through the first 4 weeks of the season? It was 1-3. They were a 1-3 football team, and they ended up 7-6. Now, I'm not a math expert, but I believe that means over their final 9 games, they went 6-3. And Virginia Tech fans, I think, are hopeful, are optimistic that they can carry that sort of play that they put on display over the final 9 games into this season. They are one of the leaders in the country in the low to mid 80s in returning production. That is not a small thing, especially in today's world of college football. Virginia Tech, you look at their transfer portal class, it's pretty small. 7 guys. It's a top 50 class, but it's nothing special. You know why? Because they don't feel like they have to. That's my suspicion, is they didn't go out and hit the transfer portal incredibly hard because they looked at the roster and said, well, we could plug a piece here or there, but we're good. We got people coming back. We got a coaching staff coming back. They should feel pretty confident. They should feel confident that they can improve and be better than a 6-6 regular season football team. I mean, you look at the losses they had a year ago. They scored under 20 points in 3 consecutive games, and they lost to Purdue, who went 4-8, Rutgers 6-6, and Marshall, which was not a Power 5 football team. That was a bad stretch of football. Things looked like they were down and out. And you got to give Brent Pry and his staff a lot of credit, because you have to instill a certain sort of culture of belief in a place that hasn't seen a 10-win season since 2016. And 16-17 are the last times they finished the season ranked inside the top 25. To start 1-3 with those losses, those are not high-profile losses. You're not going out there losing to Clemson, Florida State, and whatnot. They lost to Louisville and Florida State later in the season. The Louisville game was particularly a tough one, shall we say. The final score was 34-3, but they were in the midst of the rebuild. So they're about a next step. They're about taking that next step. At a place like Virginia Tech, can you expect it? I think Virginia Tech and Miami are different. I think Miami expects to take a big step forward. I think Virginia Tech should aspire, should hope to take a next step forward. If Virginia Tech goes, let's say, 7-5 this year, and they only improve by 1 game, is that a successful season? If you're a Virginia Tech fan, would you take 7-5 right now? Based on the ones that pop into my YouTube comments when I talk about the Hokies, the answer to that question is probably no. You wouldn't take 7-5. And I don't have a problem with you having high aspirations here. The difference between Virginia Tech right now and Miami is the expectations of Miami are higher. There's an expectation Miami's got to win at least 8 games this year. Probably 9. They should win 9 games. 9 or 10 games should be where Miami's win total is at. And if Virginia Tech were to win 9 or 10 games, it'd be a smashing success, and Brent Pry would likely get a contract extension. But if Miami wins 9 or 10 games, there's no contract extension. There's no, oh my gosh, can't believe you did this. It's, well, that's kind of what we're paying you to do here, Mario. The last couple of years, we've had to endure a little bit of toughness, and we're not firing you if you don't get to the playoff or the ACC championship game. But boy, you should get there eventually with the way you're recruiting. So the Virginia Tech schedule this year, goes something like this. Vegas is pretty confident in the Hokies. You do not see a win total tick up by one full win very often. Now, FanDuel sticks with half win totals, of course, because that's the most logical way to do it. But still, you got to do something to make Vegas feel, no, this isn't right. Now, maybe there's a lot of public money coming in on over 7.5, and everybody's hammering Virginia Tech. Maybe it's more a publicly moved line than a betting line move. But they start out at Vanderbilt. Now, Vanderbilt's not going to be a great team this year. It's Vanderbilt. You know, if they win 4 or 5 games, that'd be a good season for Clark Lee and company. But on the road, week 1, Virginia Tech's a 13.5-point favorite. Now, that's telling. That number is telling. Spencer, Vanderbilt's not any good. Yeah, I know. I just said that. Allow me to explain. Vanderbilt is a team that if you are capable of being towards the upper tier of your conference, you are about a 2-touchdown road favorite. That's a big number on the road. That's not in Blacksburg. That game's in Nashville. They got to go on the road week 1, and they're a 2-touchdown favorite. Then they come back home, and they'll look for revenge against Marshall. Not something Hokie fans would like me to be able to say, but that's the reality of the situation. Then they play at Old Dominion. And I tell you what, if there was ever a program that just seemed to pull upsets more than they should, but then not really do anything with it, it'd be Old Dominion. Like, Old Dominion is not Boise State. They don't have a Fiesta Bowl win, or, you know, Tulane in the Cotton Bowl a couple of years ago, or Memphis getting to the Cotton Bowl years ago against Penn State. Pretty sure they lost that one. They don't have a season like that. But every now and then, like every other year in college football, don't you feel like you look up and Old Dominion has beaten a team that makes you go, they beat who? They did what? What happened here? Virginia Tech plays them on the road, just saying. This is a very, very road-heavy schedule early for Virginia Tech. I don't love that element of it. They come back home against Rutgers. Probably not going to be a bad football team. Might not be a great one, but shouldn't be a bad football team. Then they go at Miami. Then they go at Stanford. Okay, that's 4 of your first 6 games on the road. Enter Sandman is only going to be played twice as of October 5th. Twice! That's it. That's a tragedy. That's a tragedy. Until you look at the second half of their schedule. If they can fight their way through those first 6 games and find a way to just go 4-2, maybe you drop that game at Miami and you fall one other time, I think you'd be in a really good spot. Boston College, Georgia Tech at home, at Syracuse, first-year head coach, new quarterback in Kyle McCord. Host Clemson. That could be a showdown. That could be one heck of a showdown. At Duke and host Virginia. It's a pretty manageable schedule. All things considered, it's a fairly manageable schedule. I look at Virginia Tech, and I think the potential for them to win 9 or 10 games is absolutely there. They've got to manage. They cannot lose more than 2 games in their first 6. But if they come out of their first 6 at 5-1, I might be aboard the hype train, and you might have to realize, whoever you are listening to or watching this show, that Virginia Tech has a path to reach the ACC championship game. Florida State's not on the schedule. That's kind of a break because, well, Florida State's preseason conference favorite. But who is on the schedule? Miami and Clemson, other ACC title contenders. You don't have NC State on this schedule, so you don't have to play that team. But you have an opportunity to get a head-to-head advantage with one of those teams who are going to be vying for a spot in the ACC title game. So, yes, it is absolutely doable. It is possible. And I'm optimistic about what Virginia Tech can do this year. Do I expect them to? Not necessarily. But can they? Can they do it? Yes. Yes, they can. Tulane can also make the playoffs, speaking of Virginia Tech, who they beat in their bowl game last year. We're going to talk about what that would look like coming up next. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier, which is better than harder, of course. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down, which is better than up, the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever you're looking for. You can save even more with exclusive in-app deals. So just ask yourself this question. What are you waiting for? I don't know either. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.